We are going to make a garbanzo bean avocado salad and serve it smashed on bread. This is a very quick and easy recipe, but it is important for every workshop that you do to spend a lot of time preparing. Preparing for your workshop is going to make it the most successful. It's actually even better if you try out a recipe beforehand. If you don't have a chance to do that, just read through the recipe really carefully and envision what you need and how you're going to do it for it to be the most successful. Your population is a senior population, so you may want to think of questions from the talking points in your lesson plan that you're going to find online. Always think of a few questions that you can ask them. Do they like garbanzo beans? Is that part of their regular diet? Is there a bean that they would prefer doing that with? I think it's very important for me when I'm doing recipes with seniors. They frequently don't cook a lot and they're not always flexible in what they want to eat. So if you can make this a recipe that they're going to try, maybe they would prefer it with white beans, but they should at least know that whatever they have in their cupboard, they can try it with. It's not important to go out and buy the exact ingredients that you have in your lesson plan. So when you order these, and you can order all of your ingredients from any online grocer, make sure that you get the exact amounts that you're going to need. And when you're using canned legumes, point out to the seniors that if they can find low sodium ones, they should. When they are making their recipe, they always want to drain them and rinse them to get off any excess sodium. They can always add a little bit of other flavors and or salt and pepper back into the recipe, but you don't really want the salt and chemicals that come on the bean. So always drain your beans. This recipe starts out with the garbanzos, and then we're going to add an avocado. It's going to be easier to mash this if you cut this ahead of time. So cut your avocado in half, remove the pit. You can do that with your spoon. And then I always slice the avocado up a little bit before I remove it from the skin. It makes it easier to mash. Okay? So that's cut up. Now it's already in pieces. I'm just going to do this a couple of times. There are a lot of talking points in this recipe about the health benefits of avocados and the health benefits of chickpeas or garbanzos. One thing that I think it's important to tell the seniors and to remind them, especially in these recipes that we're using that have beans, beans are very low on the glycemic index, and diabetes is prevalent in our culture, right? You should explain to them what the glycemic index is and how it works. So garbanzos are low on the glycemic index. What does that mean? The glycemic index is the measure of how your blood pressure, your blood sugar responds to the food that you eat. So because of the fiber and other things in any legume or bean, you digest them very slowly, therefore the sugar is put into your bloodstream slowly. And that's what you want for health and risk against diabetes, type 2 diabetes. So point that out to them. Ask them if they know what the glycemic index is. Explain it a little bit, very simply. It's in all of your lesson plan, okay? So I'm going to mash this a little bit, and then I'm going to add the lime juice and the onion and the cilantro. You can mash this with a fork, you can mash it with a potato masher, and you can mash it with a whisk if you want. You can mash it with the back of a spoon, whatever is easier for you. I'm going to put a little lime juice in here. This is a great salt substitute. We should actually need no salt in this recipe, but we'll taste it before we put it on the bread or the cracker that we're using to check it out. I also like to tell the seniors when they're juicing limes or lemons, which we always promote as a healthy flavor enhancer in your diet, if you don't have a lot of wrist strength, which it takes, right, hand strength to juice citrus fruit, do it with a fork or a spoon. So put it in there and move the spoon around, and you're going to get most of the juice out without having to squeeze really hard if hand strength is an issue for you. All right? So I'm moving this around, I'm squeezing, and that's perfect. Now I'm going to mash this a little with the back of this spoon and see how that works. Garbanzo beans are a really good source of protein, and seniors are always interested in getting plenty of protein. It helps them repair cell tissue, and I think it's always good to remind them that plant protein is particularly healthy. Seniors' biggest challenge is getting nutrient-dense food with less calories, because the older we get, the less active we are in general, and we need less calories and more nutrients, and that's a really tricky thing to do in your diet, right? So plant proteins are always a good thing to be adding. Now I'm just going to chop up a little bit of the onion and cilantro, and depending on what kind of knife you're using, make sure that you're always holding your knife like you are shaking hands. You don't want your fingers over here or your thumb over here. It's actually dangerous. If you want your green onion just a little bit finer, slice it down the middle before you start. And I think the onion in this, the green onion, tastes particularly good if it's chopped up pretty finely. So you want to use it a fine chop. So there's your onion going into your dish, and then we're going to put a little cilantro. It's also a trick when you're chopping herbs. If you hold the herbs up like this to cut them off of the stem, you're going to get less stem in there. So hold them straight up when you're cutting it off, and that way, and kind of use a downward motion, and then you're going to get, it's not that you're not going to get any stem, but you're going to leave a lot of the stem. If you have them laying flat and you're cutting them like that, you're going to get more of the stem. Some recipes like soups and stews, it's kind of fine to get plenty of stem in. They cook down, but if it's a salad, you may want less. So if you want to, you take out a few of the larger stems and then just chop it up. This recipe calls for about a 1/4 cup of cilantro. Now, cilantro also has many health benefits, so that's a great talking point while you're doing this. So make sure that you have your talking points next to you in case you want to refer to them and you don't want to have to worry about committing every last thing to memory. Also, discuss with seniors when you're chopping herbs like this, keep your knife on there and keep this hand above it. You want them nicely chopped, but they can still be a little rough. It doesn't have to be too fine. They also may prefer a different herb, and you could discuss with them when they make this at home, which hopefully they will do, how to make this for one, how long this is going to last in the refrigerator. We're using all vegetable products, so these are not likely to go bad in a very long time. This is going to be good in the refrigerator for at least 2 or 3 days, but you may want to go over that with them. And you also might want to go over with them the fact that if they don't like cilantro, they might want to use parsley or a little bit of chopped spinach, lettuce greens, whatever it is that would make it good for them. So I'm going to put my 1/4 cup of cilantro in there, and then I'm going to finish mashing it. Now, this could be served a number of different ways. You could have it on a cracker as a snack, or you can do what we're going to do today, which is, I'm going to put a teeny bit of black pepper in it. I'm going to assume that it doesn't really need so much salt with all the cilantro and the lime juice in there, and I'm not going to add any. When the seniors try it, if they think it needs salt, they could always put a sprinkle on there, okay? You can either put it on a whole piece of bread, or if you've got a large group, I think a half a piece of bread this size is a nice serving. So there's your mashed sandwich, which is beautiful. Now, if you have on hand, if you have on hand, or if you want to suggest to them that they're able to put a little garnish on there, make it into a slightly fancier thing, do so. All right? And if you had the entire sandwich, that's actually, with maybe a bowl of soup or a piece of fruit, a nice meal on a summer night when it's hot outside. You don't need a whole lot more maybe, all right? When you're making this dish, it's really important to tell your senior clients that when they're buying bread, they want to look for bread with the most whole grains and whole wheat they can find. A lot of times the bread says whole wheat and it's not that high in fiber, so it's always good to check the nutritional label. And what you're really looking for is at least 2 grams of fiber per slice. That's pretty hard to find, but not always hard to find, but in some neighborhoods harder to find. So just reiterate that when they're looking for bread, they're looking for the most whole grain they can find, and that is for nutrient density and for fiber. So I think for your purposes, though, when you're doing a workshop, you're giving people a taste of things. So you want to start out giving people less. If you have a lot of people in the room and you have it left over and people want seconds, great. But you certainly don't want to run out. And not everybody wants a huge whole sandwich during an afternoon workshop, okay? So that is your garbanzo bean and avocado salad mashed on bread. You can also serve it on a piece of whole wheat cracker, like a wasa cracker. It would be delicious if you really want it as a snack. And you could have it rolled up in a romaine lettuce leaf if you want no bread. So think about all those different ways that you would use it.